G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I want to show you guys how to fix a forward head posture. And what we mean by that, if you're not aware, is a forward head posture is essentially just a neck and a head that pokes out further than what we would like it to. And that's a real issue for a number of reasons. The first one being is that to get into this position, we have to see sort of an increase in lower neck flexion. So there has to be a bend in the neck sort of towards the base of the neck, which basically kicks a hinge into that part of the neck. But then to reorientate our head so it's horizontal again, we actually then see an additional upper neck extension to basically allow us to continue to look forwards. So instead of being up in a really nice position, we're often down and then extending to sort of make up that difference. And it can create load at the top of your neck and the base of your neck. And if you do that for a long time, then you can start to irritate the tissues, overload the tissues, and it can be a recipe for a whole bunch of neck-related dysfunction, whether it's headaches from the top of the neck, we can get a lot of shoulder pain, we can get arm pain, pins and needles numbness, RSI, finger problems, tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, de Quervain's tendon issues can all come from basically the dysfunction in the neck, in different parts of the neck. And one of the other reasons why this is important is because when we're in this position for a long time, the body can get used to that position. So for example, if we're trying to solve your forward head posture, we need to be really clear on why it happens in the first place. And the overwhelming majority of people who have forward head posture basically adopt that shape because without you realizing it, you're unknowingly asking your body to be there. So we often see that forward head posture is just a consequence of a slouchy shape. And that slouchy positioning, if you're there at a computer a long time, if you're sitting on the couch watching television, if you're driving, if you're on your phone, whatever it might be, then without you realizing it, you're perpetuating that the need for that position to be there. And I guess one of the main reasons why some people can't then get rid of that forward head posture is because when we get into this sort of forward neck position, the body gets used to it, but the tissues become stiff and tight to compensate and adapt to that position. Because your body adapts to what you ask it to do, whether you realize it or not. And that forward head position can often become stiff. So if you're in that position and you're really wanting to get out of that position, all of a sudden you're trying to get past a whole bunch of stiffness and tightness that you've accrued over the days, weeks, months, years even, that's led you to that default shape in the first place. So when we're trying to solve forward head posture, we're going to go through 2, maybe 3 exercises to help make that position a lot better. But the number one thing that you need to address and you need to achieve, if you're at the very least at the start of your process towards fixing that forward head posture, is you have to value and improve your postural habits. If you don't do that, it's almost impossible to make a lasting impact on that forward head posture, because if you're doing all these exercises and hopefully making that easier to do and getting into a better position, if you then spend 6 or 7 hours a day back in that shape again, you're not necessarily going to make the sustained progress over time that you deserve to make if you're trying to get rid of it. So the most important thing about trying to get rid of a forward head posture is you've got to try and be aware and get yourself into better positions, or at least the best position you can, whilst you work on trying to free up the stiff spots and try and strengthen the areas around it to increase your endurance to be able to hold this position better. So again, we've got a video on how to find your best posture. But essentially, the idea behind that is if you were to stand up nice and tall, imagine someone's grabbed you by the top of the hair, pulling you straight up. If your shoulders comfortably back when you're standing, when you sit down, nothing should really change. So when you're at your computer, it should be the exact same position that you would be in if you were standing. Now, again, it's covered in that video, but keep that in mind as we talk about this sort of stuff, because you need to make those changes, at least mentally and cognitively, and value that new position and value the need to be in a good position if we're trying to get this to go away. So that's important tip number 1. Posture's boring. It's not very sexy. It's not fun to talk about, but it really is the foundation of good positioning and good function, of which a forward head posture falls underneath that quite clearly. So again, don't discount your postural habits. You have to make an effort to improve those forever. There's no end game to this. It's a consistent battle that you've got to keep fighting against, because we're in a world that values slouching in chairs and computers and car seats and sitting up in bed and all this sort of stuff. So again, really important that you tick that off and continue to tick that off if you're going to see this change consistently over time. Now, the second thing that we sort of need you to do is, as I spoke about before, when we get into those forward head postures a lot, we tend to slouch a lot, depending on where the load goes. And what a lot of people don't realize is, as soon as that head starts to leave the body a little bit more, the load on the actual neck from the head increases substantially. So it's not just a matter of being in this position and getting stiff, but the excessive load that's now going through these joints increases the further away from your center of gravity that head goes. But also, as the shoulders drop and roll forwards, we get this added sort of pulling and tension through the joints at the base of the neck and the upper back, that again, your body has to adapt to that load, and does so by becoming stiffer, by becoming tighter, to support that baseline increase in load that we do from being in less than perfect postures. So what we need to do is, if you're trying to get out of that position, when you're trying to pull that chin back in and pull yourself up a little bit taller, you can be doing so against a lot of that rustiness that you've accrued without realizing. So if you've been following the channel a lot before, you'll know that we love this exercise for anything spinal. And again, if you're trying to fix a forward head posture, it's a really great example of an exercise that you can do to free up a lot of that rustiness and clear a path, if you can't get back there, to clear a path for you to then reclaim a better position instead of having to force your way back against all this joint stiffness. So easiest way to do that is we get the ball, we'll start down low, just below the bump at the base of the spine, at the base of the neck, on that thoracic spine, that upper back. Start right in the middle where the bumps are, and then just literally dump off a little bit to the side, and then let the ball press in there. And what we're going to do is we're going to get you to lie down and let the ball basically dig into that part of your body. So again, I'm in the middle of the spine, I'm just rolling literally off to the side. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for some stiffness and some tightness. And again, if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know what I'm going to say here. But the idea basically is that you want to move the ball around until you find something that feels a little bit stiff and tight. And then you want to stay on that spot. So again, the goal of the exercise isn't to roll around. That doesn't achieve what we want to achieve here by freeing up the deeper layers of stiffness and tightness through the thoracic spinal joints, but also the rib joints in this upper back. But it's also going to help soften up some of that stiff, chronically overloaded tissue that you may have back here if you've been in some slouchy postures and in that forward head posture for a long time. So again, we just want to find an area that feels a little bit stiff, and we literally just want to stay here. So again, the second point to this exercise is, if you then get a sense of how this feels to push in on the left-hand side, take note of how sore it is, but take note of also how tight and restricted it feels, or how easy the ball sinks in. You then compare the exact same spot on the other side. And what you'll find is, or what most people will find is, that one side feels like it's stiffer and tighter than the other. And for me, this left-hand side feels like it doesn't sink in as well as the right-hand side. So even if I had all of my pain and tenderness on the right-hand side, or it felt more tender on the right-hand side, but it didn't sink in as well on the left-hand side, we actually want to spend more time where the stiffness is. For most people, maybe not most people, maybe 50% of people, 60% of people, that tenderness and stiffness is on the same side, so it doesn't really matter. But just double check just in case, because you don't need to be jamming a ball into an area that feels tender if it doesn't also feel restricted, because that's the point of the exercise. And then the idea is once you've had enough on that spot, then just move the ball up a little bit, or down a little bit, or off to the left or right a little bit more, and go looking for the next area of stiffness and tightness. So for me, I'm just onto the base of the neck here. I'm sure you can see the ball poking out the bottom here. And again, I want to roll onto that side so I feel like I'm getting a good purchase on the ball. And I just want to stay here until the ball sort of sinks in and frees that tissue up before moving on to the next area. And then what you'll hopefully find is, and please test and retest this yourself because you deserve to see a change, if you're stuck in this position, it should automatically feel easier to get back into a better position. That head and that neck should have more mobility through those rusty joints, that you can put yourself into a better position more often. And I think it's a really important point there, that rustiness is often the thing that stops you from getting back there easily and feeling like you can get back there easily. And by taking out some of that restriction, you should feel like it's a hell of a lot smoother straight away. So obviously go all the way up to the top of the neck, base of the skull, because those areas, again, are going to get overloaded by being closed off in that position. We're not just worrying about the base of the neck through here. We want to go basically from sort of mid shoulder blade all the way up to the top of the neck, up and down both sides, see where the main areas of stiffness and tightness are. Generally, it's on the same side the whole way up and down, but just double check. It doesn't often switch from side to side to side. It'll stay on one side for a bit, and if it switches at the neck, it may switch to the other side. But just double check for yourself so that you know exactly where you need to be. And then recheck your posture again and see how much easier it is to get back into a good position. A really valuable tool that can make getting into a better position a lot better and help fix that forward head posture a lot faster. Now, the third exercise, or the third part to this, we want to basically add some strength, and maybe not just strength, but endurance as well, because posture isn't a power position. It's not a strength position. It is more of an endurance thing. So if you're sitting at the computer a lot, maybe the first half an hour, you feel like you're in a great position, but by the 7th half hour, you might find that you're really fatiguing and you're losing that ability to stay in a good position. So when we're trying to strengthen the right areas, we want to make sure that there is an endurance component to that. And what that means is we don't just want to do the standard 3 sets of 8 or 3 sets of 10 to 12. We might want to look at higher repetitions. So we might be looking at 15s, 20s, 25s, 30s, whatever it might be. We want to really fatigue those muscles, but also give them that endurance component so that you can tolerate a better position more often. So obviously once you're valuing a good position, you've freed up the stiffness and the rustiness stopping you from getting back into a good position. You need to be able to hold that position for as long as you need to when you're sitting down or working, for example. So 2 really simple exercises to help with that. And I just have a basic TheraBand here. You can obviously use weights. You can do this at the gym. Preferably, you probably would use some weights because then you can toggle how much load's going through there. But again, this is a really simple way to sort of highlight this. So the 2 exercises that we want to promote here with endurance is we want to go after some rowing and some shrugs. And the reason why we want to do that is because if you watch what happens to me when I'm in a good position, watch what happens to my shoulders when I slouch. What you'll hopefully notice here is that the shoulders, essentially from the position that I start at, they tend to drop and tend to roll forwards. So we basically want to give you some exercises to pull those shoulders back and tolerate that sort of, not an upward position, but a more normal position better. So obviously a shrug will help with the up and down orientation, and a row will help with the sort of forward and back orientation. So an easy way to do this with a band, again, you can use this in it. There's 1,000 different ways you can do a rowing exercise. But the point that I will make here is, again, you want to be up tall in a good position. So whether you're standing, whether you're sitting at a rowing machine, whatever it may be, you want to make sure that you're up nice and tall in a good posture. And the reason why we want to do this is a lot of people, when they do a row, is they'll be guided by how close their hands get to their chest or their belly. And if you watch my elbows, it's very easy for my elbows to translate behind me. So I'm ending up in a position where my elbows have passed my trunk and are going backwards through here. Now, if you're conscious of this and you have good posture, it doesn't matter, because if I'm in a good posture, all that I'm doing is I'm getting to this point and then I'm just extending my shoulders to allow my hands to reach my chest or my trunk. But what a lot of people tend to do, particularly if you're not amazing posturally just yet, is as soon as those elbows pass your trunk, the shoulder can then start to dump forwards a little bit more, which can perpetuate that sort of rounded, crappy posture. So what I would suggest you try, at least initially, is when you're up in a good position, just pull the weight or the band or the cable back far enough so that you end up with your elbows basically in line with your shoulder. And what that allows you to do is, and you'll notice this if you do this at home, is when your elbows get to your side, it's easier to then pull your shoulders back in this position as well. So again, we want to get you to do enough of these that you feel like you start to fatigue. And remember, it's all shoulder blades. So you want to think that your shoulder blades are doing the work and your arms are just along for the ride. So again, don't be guided by your hands reaching your chest, because that can be sort of dangerous for some people. And not dangerous, but it can be, it can go against what we're trying to do by creating and perpetuating better postures. Just go elbows to your side and really pull those shoulder blades back to help with that sort of posterior orientation with the scapular strength as well. Do enough of these so you feel like you start to get tired, and then move on to the next one. And the next one, basically, as I said, are some shrugs. So again, you can do this by standing on the band. You can hold some weights in your hand. You can do it a lot of different ways if you want to. Again, for the purposes of this video, I'll do it from here. You'll lose my head, but hopefully you get the idea. So basically what we want to get you to do is, again, we need you to be in a good posture. So again, you can't be doing it from a bad shape, pulling up in front. It defeats the purpose and can create a whole lot of other issues. What we want you to do, shoulders back, and we basically want to get you to lean forward a little bit. So a lot of people don't realize that when you lean forward a little bit, it just targets the upper traps a little bit better than if you are bolt upright. So what I get my patients to do is I first get them to be in a good posture, then take your arms away from your side a little bit, leaning forward a fraction, and then just pull your shoulders up behind your ears. And then essentially what you'll find is it really targets those upper traps in a really great way. And what we want to get you to do, again, go for 15, go for 20, go for a couple of sets of those. Make sure that you feel some fatigue come into those upper traps in those areas. Just make sure that when you're doing this, that you don't value how high you go. A lot of people, when you're in a good position and you try and take your shoulders up behind your ears, an easy way to complete that movement and cheat is to poke your chin out and perpetuate that same forward head posture that we're trying to get rid of. So you'll see this a lot in the gym, particularly when people have really heavy weights and value how high they go. If they value how high they go instead of how good their technique is, then they will sacrifice a good posture just to get to that shape, which is not what we want for this exercise. So again, just want to make sure that we're going shoulders back and go up and down from that position without your neck or chin or head moving. And we're going to do enough of these to fatigue you. And again, you can do it standing. Obviously, I wouldn't recommend doing it kneeling, but it's okay for this video. And the other thing about this that we need to consider with shrugs is that a lot of people think of doing sort of shoulder rolls. Again, it's not necessarily something that I would advise because we just want to focus on the up and down movement more than anything. So I think it's a much better postural exercise when you just go straight up and down as opposed to rolling your shoulders back. Again, it can really perpetuate that chin out position if you're not necessarily paying attention. So again, with that being said, if you want to eliminate that forward head posture, you've got to value good posture. You've got to value good positioning and actively work day to day to catch yourself in the shapes that you're in and try and sort of reinforce a good position. Second thing is you've got to clear a path for that chin and that neck to come back up into a good position. And you can do that by using a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball. Doesn't matter what you use. You just want to free up and find those spots so that you can get back there easier. And then we want to try and add a little bit of endurance to the muscles that hold you in a better position just to increase your ability to stay in that shape when needed. So some shrugs and some rowing exercises are fantastic for that, provided that you're practicing and cultivating a straight spine, shoulders back into a good position, and you're not losing those shapes just to complete the exercise. So they're the three things that I would get you to focus on more than anything. So please let me know in the comments down below. Let me know how you're going with these exercises and also how your forward head posture is looking. Take a before and after video or a photo of yourselves just so that you can gauge how that's progressing over time. You shouldn't have to take my word for these things. You should see that they work. And you can only, I guess, see that change and that progress if you take a before and after shot, just so you can give yourself confidence that you're on the right track. So as always, if you went on to enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like down below. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. I really want these videos to reach as many people as possible, and I can't do that without your help, so please consider doing that. And yeah, until next time, thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.